How much of yourself should you bring to work? Your personal self? Especially in an education context, how much of yourself should you share with your class? Hi, I'm Chuck. I'm an educator with a new job this year, a new commute, and this is Drive Time Diaries, and you're along for the drive today. I've had a lot of thoughts about this recently. There's an episode called Authentic Self where we dipped into this a little bit, but this is relevant today. I guess work self versus personal self. How much of your personal life should you bring into the workplace? Those of you not up on education law, to put it really generally, is if a kid asks you about something, then you are allowed to share that thing. If a kid brings it up, you can answer the question. If a kid does not bring it up, then you generally are less protected under education law, and definitely none of those things are usually appropriate for like during instruction time. So these things would all happen kind of in between classes or after school, that sort of thing. So how much of myself should I share with the kids? What I found at my last school, I think in the end, with most students, I had too much of a boundary. And I had a little bit of a, I don't even know if I did this on purpose, but I had my personal life and I had the appropriate quote-unquote professional persona that I shared with the kids mostly. And I talked about living in their neighborhood. Like a lot of the kids were often very close to my house, my neighbors. And I talked about that. I talked about growing up in the community with them. I talked about things going on in the neighborhood. I wanted that to be known as a person living in the community. But and like they always knew that I had 4 kids. They knew their names often, but they did not know as much things that I was personally interested in and passionate about. I did not share very often things that I was frustrated about, like in the real world, that kind of thing. And as I'm reflecting on this, I started thinking about this a lot because at our new teacher orientation, the first week of August this year, there was a student panel that spoke a great deal about how one thing that they loved about my new school was their relationships and knowing their teachers. And so taking that feedback and knowing that it was deeply important to these students that they felt like they knew their teachers, I started thinking about how I was going to make myself more known and what that was going to look like. And so that's the path that I'm walking down. One way that that's looking is I have a screensaver that will pop up that just says Kingdom Worker. And that's something that's personal to me, and kids have noticed it, but they haven't really asked anything about it until actually finally today someone asked what it meant, and I told them there was a connection to Jesus and how about he always talks about the kingdom of God, that kind of thing. I said it real brief. We were in class and we were trying to get ready for our chapter 1 test for stats, so I didn't go any more into length of that, but there might be a follow-up question next week that I pose or whatnot, and they know that I have this public Twitter that I tweet to, and these episodes all go to that. So if they wanted to investigate that further, I guess they'd be open to do that. But so it's out there if the kids are interested. I'm not avoiding it at all, but I'm definitely not. It's not a part of class, that kind of thing.
So step one, definitely, as far as making myself known and more personable to my students, is injecting small bits with intention that are personal to me. I have pictures of my family in a more prominent spot in the front of the class and kind of where they were in the back corner of my last classroom. What else? I did, here's the shout out. My stats class even asked for a shout out today. Their science teacher also is a new teacher to the building this year. I know her a little bit better than some of the other staff in the building, because we had that week of new orientation together. Anyway, so she emailed me today and she's like, "Hey, my kids are listening to your podcast. You must be famous or popular," or whatever she said. And so I sent that to my wife immediately, and I was like, "Hey, apparently the kids are listening to the pod." And she said, "That's not good." I said, "You think?" And she said, "IDK." So I'm thinking about that now today too. And I think I brought up during stats today that I asked them who had that science teacher for science today. And I just said that I heard that I came up during class or something like that. And they said, "Oh yeah, we found out you had a podcast." They asked just a brief moment about it. Another kid was like, "What? I'm late to it." And then a kid said, "Hey, I want a shout out." So AP Stats, here's your shout out. I hope you hear this later, because you asked for it. But yeah, this is if you're here just for the shout out, thank you for being interested learners, and thank you for being really supportive of each other. I'm really proud of you all for that. I hope that your test this coming Tuesday goes really good. Really hoping for the best for us together as we learn our AP Stats. But back to the regular content. In the past, so I talked about last year, or maybe the last several years at my other school. I wanted to be known as a community member, but there were also a lot of things I wasn't sharing about myself. And so I think definitely the kids, like these kids in my new school that said they really want to know their teacher, there were relationship building opportunities I was leaving on the table because I was not sharing those things and giving kids a point of connection that they were seeking. And as I've been thinking about this today, I think the other teachers, the other two 8th grade teachers in my school, were really good about this, about talking about things about their life, kind of as they became relevant in class, just as teachable moments, as talking points. And the kids really connected to that. And they really enjoyed knowing stories about the ELA teacher, how they were when they were kids, and the stories from them growing up, and stories from the science teacher from growing up. So that's a thing that I have not been sharing as much last couple of years, that I have already purposefully started injecting into the class. I think bonus points for if it's embarrassing also. I told a story about when I was a junior and my girlfriend went to Canada for a week because her brother was on the Junior Blues and had this amazing opportunity to go play in a tournament in Montreal in the middle of the school year. And while she was in Canada, I was flirting at school with this other girl, and for some idiot reason did not think that anyone else was going to let the girlfriend know that. And so we promptly broke up. Sorry, let me say it correctly. I was promptly dumped when she got back from Canada. And so that is, it's mostly innocuous. So, gosh. That was sirens. Let's see what's happening. Okay. That was not for me. Alright. Ha! First on the pod. Police sirens right next to me. That's funny. If you're still here for the shout out, that's fun. That would have been really interesting if I got a ticket or something while on the pod. I think, just so you know, I was going like 62. So that would have been weird. But more personal note, I just don't speed. Really, those of you that speed, I love you, and I hope you don't get hurt, but I don't totally understand you. So that story about me as a junior being an idiot as far as the ways of romance was mostly kind of innocuous, and it was kind of a funny way to be a little deprecative of myself, and just let them know something about Mr. Baker. One of my favorite teachers in high school was really good at this too, and she would use these stories to make sure that we worked hard during class. She would like tease the story a day or two or three ahead. She would re-tease it at the beginning of class and say things like, okay, if you get through the reading for today, it was our Brit Lit teacher. Like, if you get through the reading today, then I'll tell the story about when I went to prom with the ROTC boy in Alton. Stuff like that. And we were always enraptured from Miss Jessen's stories. So that kind of thing, I've been thinking a lot about those moments the past several months, and so that's part of me. I'd say that's bringing part of your personal story and connecting to your students. And it seems like the students in my new school super value that, because that's what they said. And so, is that professional? I think so. Part of the teaching profession is to make sure that you are connecting with your students. That's the profession. So to do that well as a professional, if kids are asking to know more about you, then I think that's totally appropriate and necessary, and is a positive. If anyone listening wants to open up the law and tell me that that's wrong, then please do that. I'm starting actually new classes for Ed Specialists in Leadership at Northwest Missouri State. Go Bearcats! Starting that in October, and I'm sure we'll talk about ed law then, and maybe I'll find out right then that I need to retcon this episode and tell you all that I was deeply wrong in this episode. But until then, from my understanding and my wisdom, I'm doing what I think is best so I can live with integrity. And this is the point that I wanted to make sure that I got to. Not integrity so much as like you live with integrity means you don't lie, or, you do the same thing when people aren't looking. I mean, that is a definition of integrity, but math connection here also. The word integrity comes from the Latin integer, according to the internet, which stands for wholeness. And so here's the integrity that I want to live. Besides being the same in the classroom when the administrator is there versus not, and being the same when no one is watching me as when people are watching me, having my phone look the same if it's being monitored versus as if it weren't. Those kinds of things. I of course want that. I think that's important. But on the other level, definition of integrity, wholeness. I think it's really important and healthy, mentally, socially, to be able to have
similar values at home as you do in the workplace, and to be able to find a way to express those. It's not healthy for an individual to have one life at home and to have a completely different life in other spaces, other public spaces, whether it's your job place, your workplace, which is a public space with boundaries, or civic organizations, or I guess that's it. I mean, third space is Starbucks or whatever, but home, work, and third space. Religious organization goes into that too. I deeply value being whole in all of those things and being the same person. I volunteer at my church too. I wouldn't want that group of youth to see me as a completely different person than the group of youth that I'm with every day in my classroom. Are we going to have different conversations? Absolutely, because the goal is different. In the classroom, I'm helping them social, emotional, that kind of thing, whole child. But our main goal is algebra proficiency, and on the end of course exam, and 3s, 4s, and 5s on the AP exam for stats. That is our goal. And we're going to do other things around that goal. I'm going to bring that, my whole self, authentic self, to use that word again. I'm going to bring that whole authentic self to stats in a way that it serves with me to connect with the students so that their learning can be better, so that we can get 3, 4s, and 5s and get that AP credit, which is our goal.
Take exit 10B.
I'm going to bring my whole self to that algebra class so that I can teach in such a way that I connect with kids on a deeper level, so that I can improve their learning, so that they can be proficient algebra students. That's the goal. Another thing I lost last year in those barriers and in the way that I set my classroom goal last year, that left myself out. It left my individuality out, and it unintentionally left the kids' individuality out. I set the goal that everyone would be proficient or advanced on their algebra end of course exam, but I didn't include anything in there about the individual. And as I got to the end of the year and realized that had been an error, it was kind of too late at that point, but there were a lot of some missed opportunities with kids that I could have gotten learning further and deeper if they had that individual component. That if my class goal had included a component of being known, being seen, our vision, I think in my district, I think it's the vision, includes this acronym called SEEN, which stands for support. This is what we want our students to be seen: supported, encouraged, educated, and nurtured. And I think it's important that we extend that to all our staff members also. We're having a healthy organization for kids. We're going to have that healthy organization for the adults in the organization also. And so to be seen, that does not, if I'm going to be fully seen, it's going to be acknowledged that I have a personal life, and I have a life that is not just Mr. Baker, algebra teacher, but also that other component of my life is going to affect my persona as a teacher. All the other components of a kid's life is going to impact them as a learner. And so as we're thinking about whole self for teachers, as we're thinking about whole self for staff, and we look at that 360 view of who they are as a person, we welcome all those things into the classroom so that we can welcome everyone as a learner and as a contributor to the community. To talk a little bit deeper about that, I'm always about, oh look, there's a there's a closed lane. So it's always important to me that if I'm going to want to express
things personally about me that I know that I would have to
Take the
express
next
that
left
same
onto
right
South
to others.
McChesney Drive.
And so, if I want to have Kingdom Worker on my
In 1,000 feet, turn
on my
left onto
screensaver,
McChesney Drive.
then the same little personal note that someone else might want, a rainbow T-shirt that is very obvious about being inclusive, or a pride flag, that kind of thing. As far as like civil liberties and the law and the Constitution would go, I think we have to
Take the next left
leave
onto
space
McChesney
for both of
Drive,
those
then
things.
turn right onto South New Florissant
And
Road.
we have to find a way to be okay with both of those, for both of those to exist in the same space, if we want to say that we have that right to do that. We can't be mad at one and want the other.
Turn right onto South
Either
New
way.
Florissant Road.
And so I'm going to keep bringing my whole self. I'm going to be bringing my, quote, authentic self again. I don't remember if I touched on all these things in episode 3, which was several weeks ago at this point. And this is just a rehashing, but it's been really fun the last couple weeks to be more known, to be more intentional about sharing embarrassing stories about myself, and not keeping things that kids ask me about close to the chest. If you do that differently, I'd love to hear how you do it. If you have different personal boundaries, but also are able to make those super deep connections with kids, I'd love to hear how you do that too. Send me a message on Instagram at DriveTime Diary or at Mr. C. Baker for Math. You can get me on Twitter, X, at Chuck C. Baker, or you can respond if you're listening on Spotify to the Q&A. And thanks for being on this drive. We'll see you next week on the next commute. Until then, drive safe.